Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Gaza, thousands of Palestinians gathered Saturday for the funeral of 21-year-old medic Hassan al-Najjar, who an Israeli sniper shot dead Friday as she was helping evacuate wounded Palestinians at a protest near the separation fence between Israel and Gaza. The Israeli sniper shot her in the chest, even though she was clearly wearing a medical vest and a medical ID at the time of her death. In total, the Israeli military has killed at least 119 Palestinians and wounded more than 13,000 more as part of a brutal crackdown against Palestinians' ongoing nonviolent Great March of Return protests demanding end to the Israeli occupation. This is Ghazan's mother, Sabrina al-Najjar.
The whole world saw what happened to my daughter, and I call for international protection. Where is this international protection? Where are the human rights? How was my daughter a threat? What was her weapon? This is her weapon, this medical equipment. This is my daughter's weapon. This is what she was resisting with. On what basis did the soldier kill her? She's been targeted since the first day of protest. So many times. She has survived death. She would come through and tell me what she went through. May God account every person who is silent about this.
Headlines will speak with Hassan's cousin Dalia, and we'll go to Gaza to speak with Mr. Medat Abbas, the director of the Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest in the Gaza Strip. President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, claims Sunday Trump has the power to pardon himself.
It's not going to happen. So it's a hypothetical point. I think the presidential power, there's nothing that limits the presidential power of pardon from a federal crime, not a state crime. President Trump is not going to do that. He's obviously not going to give up any of his pardon powers or any other future president's pardon powers. But under these circumstances, he's not going to do that.
Giuliani made the claims only one day after the New York Times published a 20-page letter written by Trump's lawyers to special counsel Robert Mueller, in which his lawyers claim Trump is above the law, thus cannot have illegally obstructed the Mueller investigation. In the January 29th letter, they claim it remains our position that the president's actions here, by virtue of his position as the chief law enforcement officer, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction, because that would amount to him obstructing himself, and that he could, if he wished, terminate the inquiry or even exercise his power to pardon if he so desired, unquote. In North Korea, 3 top military officials have reportedly been removed from their posts amid preparations for the proposed June 12th summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un. In a reversal, President Trump announced Friday he would hold the summit after canceling the proposed meeting only a week earlier. In Guatemala, at least 25 people have died after the Fuego volcano erupted about 25 miles southwest of the capital, Guatemala City. Hundreds more were injured when lava poured down the mountainside and engulfed nearby villages. The Guatemalan president, Jimmy Morales, has declared 3 days of national mourning. In Jordan, thousands of protesters took to the streets of the capital Amman for a 4th straight night Sunday, amidst a growing anti-austerity movement sparked by an income tax increase backed by the International Monetary Fund. The protests are the biggest in Jordan. Al Jazeera reports Jordan's King Abdullah II is expected to ask for Prime Minister Hani al-Mulki's resignation today, the biggest protest in Jordan in years. This is Yasmin Miyar, one of the protesters.
To be honest, the citizens cannot handle the economic burdens. Who was bearing it previously? We are not the people who should pay the taxes of the IMF and the debts the country is putting onto the shoulders of the people. As you can see, people are protesting and are opposing these decisions.
Tunisia's defense ministry says at least 46 refugees died when their boat sank off Tunisia's coast Sunday. The refugees were from Tunisia and other African nations headed towards Sicily. The United Nations says at least 660 refugees have died crossing the Mediterranean so far this year. In Nicaragua, at least 6 people were killed over the weekend amidst escalating anti-government protests that have engulfed Nicaragua since mid-April. More than 110 people in the protests so far, of them killed, the majority killed by security forces or paramilitary groups loyal to Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega. On Sunday, Pope Francis prayed for peace in Nicaragua.
I join my brother bishops of Nicaragua in expressing sorrow for the serious violence carried out by armed groups to suppress social protests which have caused dead and wounded. I pray for the victims and their families. The Church is always for dialogue, but this requires an active commitment to respect freedom and, above all, life. I pray so that all violence could cease and so the conditions for the resumption of dialogue could be found as soon as possible.
In Puerto Rico, residents lined up hundreds of pairs of shoes outside the Capitol building in San Juan Friday as a memorial to those who died after Hurricane Maria. The action came after a stunning study by Harvard researchers revealed the storm's death toll is at least 4,645 people, 70 times higher than the official count. This is Neda Morales-Perez speaking at the vigil.
I'm here because my sister died. My sister is part of the statistics. She got in an accident and they couldn't operate on her in time. She was in the emergency room in the trauma unit, and she was in the intensive care unit for 51 days, until she died on December 21st, 2017.
In Texas, Oregon Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley was barred from entering a detention center for immigrant children in Brownsville Sunday after traveling to the center, housed inside an old Walmart, to see firsthand the Trump administration's practice of separating immigrant children from their parents. Federal authorities reportedly separated at least 600 immigrant children from their parents last month, sparking outrage and international condemnation. Meanwhile, in more immigration news, Houston authorities say there was a 16% drop in reports of domestic violence from the Latino community last year. Community advocates are concerned women are not reporting domestic violence out of fear of deportation. And in Denver, Colorado, an off-duty FBI agent shot and wounded a man at a bar after the agent did a backflip in the middle of the dance floor, causing his gun to fall out of his holster and fire accidentally. And in New York City, hundreds of sex workers and their allies rallied outside the Stonewall National Monument Saturday and marched to Washington Square Park to demand protections for sex workers on International Whores Day. This is Dominique.
Let me make this abundantly clear. Sex work is work. Woo! Thank you. It is labor. It is a solution more accessible than many others. It provides immediate income to its workers across a multitude of genders, races, nationalities, and abilities. When other doors are shut, sex work is open. Keep the door of internet sex work open, of safer sex work open, of consensual sex work open. Let us work. Let us live.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.